Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, Pat and James discuss the Gifted Underachievers Lab and how to engage in high-value, smaller experiments with an example from the Gifted Underachievers' own creative work. Pat,
Yes.
we need to do another experiment. Well, no, actually, I want to talk about experiments.
Okay. Yeah.
So I remember the past conversation, you were done with experiments, or no more adding to our list of
I
experiments.
did, because I have a tendency to see things as experiments, and I was like, oh, that'd be a good experiment. And then, yes, you're right. I said to you, you know what? We've already got the grant experiment. I think we have another one. I don't even remember what it is.
Yes. Yeah. The side, we're not calling it side hustles. What are we calling it? Little.
Oh, the small creative acts.
Yeah, small creative acts experiments. So we've got grant experiments, small creative acts
Yeah, I
experiments.
forgot
A
all
lot
about.
of
I should.
experimenting going on in the Gifted Underachievers Lab. But
Yes.
but I had this idea. So this is going to be writing specific. So artists and others, I think there's crossover here. But
Yeah.
so I'm a member of Sub Club, I think, or Sub Hub, and
On
it's
Substack.
Substack.
Hmm.
And they send out, here's literary journals that are looking for submissions. Here's literary agents that are looking for submissions, all
Hmm.
this kind of stuff. And I was sending out a short story that's it's a chapter from a larger novel that I'm working on. And I got the idea of, oh, why don't I try sending, um, reaching out to some agents that handle upmarket literary fiction and say, because I do have one of these that's been published online, and say to them, look, I've published this short story. Here's where you can find it. It's part of a novel. I've identified you as an agent I would love to pitch to. And so I'm doing this to put me on your radar.
Yeah.
It'd be great if you could go take a look at this short story,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so sent out to 4 people. And one I heard back just sent me their wrote rejection, which seemed a little odd. But anyway,
Mm.
but what I got as I was doing it, I realized what I'm doing is a little experiment,
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
So it doesn't have to be a big thing.
Hmm.
And that got me to thinking that as creatives, we can find ways to do all of these little experiments to test little, things out to see what works. And I know we tend to do this, but I don't know if we tend to do it with any kind of intentionality.
Yeah.
Um, and thinking, how can when you come up with a new painting song, or you want to do something different in an audition, all these different things. You don't have to create the big, huge experiment that requires opening up Excel and, all right.
Yes. What? No
Yeah, I know.
Excel?
Yeah, you can
Fucker.
go without Excel for a day, I bet, Pat,
Oh,
maybe.
whatever. To each his own.
I know it sounds irrational, doesn't it? But it got me to thinking about kind of setting that as an intention or planting it in the back of the brain so that every now and again it can come out and you can sort of say, oh, this is an opportunity to do this. And it's
Yeah.
simple, it's easy. It took me like 20 minutes to send out, if that, to send out to, I think it was like 5 different agents, right?
So it's not a random act. Do you have a null hypothesis? Like this will happen if I do it, and and then so let's say your null hypothesis is nobody will respond with a yes because this is not how they want to receive stuff, or your null hypothesis is it doesn't hurt to throw some shit out there and see what happens.
Yeah, well, let me, to be clear, agents usually have very specific ways that they want,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
so I was going to their more regular email address, right? Not their pitch email address.
Right.
And very explicitly saying this is not a pitch. This is just I exist in the world. my presence is Nomadic Journal, where my short story is. I would love for you to check it out. I just want to be on your radar,
Yeah.
right? So even if they don't, my theory is that probably they're not even going to go read the story, but at least I've introduced myself, right? And
Yeah.
so the hypotheses or the thing that I want to find out is, one, is that horribly annoying, and I'm I'm getting on the wrong radar with them,
Yeah. 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 Yeah, they're
right?
like, okay, like, what do you call it when you stop somebody's email from hitting your box? They're you've gone okay, so that's one
Yeah,
possibility? Yeah.
they'd say, not this email ever again, please. Or two, this feels like a reasonable thing to do. And then that part of it got me to thinking, right? So if you're like really new to this, to writing or whatever it is that you're doing, and you're just trying to fling spaghetti against the wall,
Mhm.
then I feel like that would be probably not a good idea,
Mhm.
right? Like if
Mhm.
you need to spend more time kind of in the trenches figuring shit out.
Mhm.
Since I'm definitely mid-level trying to bump up a rung,
Yeah.
and I understand, these are very, very busy people. Um, and you can't just be the fling spaghetti against the wall type thing,
Yeah.
but there's an intentionality behind it. And they are looking for writers,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, anybody, a gallery, somebody producing a movie, somebody who needs to put people on a stage, for
Yeah.
whatever comedy, music, they need people coming to them and saying, I'm the next thing, right?
Yeah, they
And
need talent. They do. Yeah.
yeah, and so maybe this is a very low impact because there's no expectation. There's no please write me back. Please.
Mhm.
The ask is please go read it, but I don't anticipate they will, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no like prove to me that you've read it or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just I just want you to be on the I want to be on the radar so when I do go through the appropriate, proper, full, and I have all my full presentation,
Yeah.
that you go, oh, that's this guy. And I don't
Yeah.
know, that's why I only sent it 4 or 5, and I'm going to kind of sit back with it and see what happens.
Mhm.
It makes it so easy to do because it was very quick to send them out, and it's very easy to sit back and to see what happens.
Well, I think it's kind of brilliant because when you think about it, by the time you get mid-level, if you're in your ability to do your craft, whatever it is, you might also have become a little too cognizant of the barriers, of the fact that you do need to go through the pitch portal for agent websites in publishing, and most of them have the pitch portal. You can't get their emails easily other ways. And so you might be just kind of limiting your options by not even trying these little experiments.
Mhm.
So maybe in a field of spaghetti pictures, you'll stand out because you're like, here's a story, it's already out. I'm working on a novel, and you if they want to look you up, you've got all these books out with that you've that you've ghostwritten and plus your own stuff. Um so it'll be interesting to see what transpires because I think the thing that stops me from has stopped me for, probably the since I got my historical fiction book kinda tank well, it didn't tank, but it didn't get picked up.
Mhm.
And I just kinda went, "Okay, well, I have an agent, and, that's the only way I can pitch anything to anybody." And then I realized, actually, no, she only represents full-length works that are in her wheelhouse. So I do the nonfiction, I do the novellas, I do the other stuff outside of that relationship. Plus, she's moved to middle grade, so it's irrelevant. But the point I'm trying to make is that the time you get to mid level, you might not be willing to throw. You're not throwing spaghetti, but you might not feel like it's okay to just approach people from other angles than the ones you have had
Mhm.
drummed into you are the angles they want to be approached from. And so what you're saying is, I'm going to try this little experiment. I won't probably know if anything happens unless it goes well, basically, and that's fine.
Mhm.
So be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I may not find out the answer until, I finish this thing and I send it out to one of these people and they're like, "Oh, you're the jerk."
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I thought I had you slated for spam.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You must have changed something in your email address. How'd you get through?
But that's okay, because by then you'll have the finished novel and you'll be subbing to a bunch of people. They won't be the only game in town.
Yeah, yeah, they're certainly not the only game in town, but,
Mm-mm.
this conversation kind of brings up sort of two thoughts, which is one, yes, galleries need to put things on the wall that are new and different, right? It
Mhm.
can't be the same thing over and over. And so, one of the crazy things about being mid-level is you're not the beginner, so you're not, just starting out, but you're not known either, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you can't go to the agent, the publisher, the gallery, the big club in town, and expect them to be like, "Oh yeah, I know who you are. I've seen your stuff,"
Yeah.
right? And so part of, I think, that breaking through is trying to get yourself out there in a way that they go, "Yeah, I've heard of you. I've seen your stuff," but not in a like, "Oh God, it's this asshole again."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Like this person, it feels inauthentic. They're doing blast emails, they're
Mhm.
doing, gimmicks. And I guess that's the other thing is, does this feel gimmicky?
It doesn't
And
to
how do
me. I
you,
mean, you're trying something different, that's all.
yeah. So, how do you, as a mid-level person who, yeah, there's some people who know you, but there's many, 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 many others who don't.
Mhm.
How do you make that breakthrough? And
Yeah.
I doing these little small experiments where you're limiting your exposure in
Mhm.
terms of if you are making a mistake and you're unaware of it, which we can all do.
Yeah.
um, you're giving yourself a chance to figure that part out.
I think that's very intelligent.
Well, I just figured it out. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
but what would you recommend? You know?
I think really I would probably go, well, I think what you're doing is absolutely fine. You're referring them to a published work and you're saying you're working on a novel and this isn't a pitch.
Mhm.
Fair enough. If they have time and they're curious, they can go read your stuff. If they don't have time and they're not curious, they might still remember that this is not a pitch email. Is it in the
Mhm.
subject line? This is not a pitch.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And so, I think it's worth a try. It's 4 agents out of how many thousands of agents,
Yeah.
that
I know, I
represent.
get tripped up. Are there thousands or hundreds? I
Oh,
mean,
there's
it's
thousands.
yeah.
Thousands, thousands, and thousands, and so, seriously, I don't think there's a downside to trying it out, and I actually think it's kind of fun. It's like that having a lottery ticket in your pocket, what if it pays off?
Hmm.
And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, what have you lost? All you've lost is a piece of paper that you thought might be worth something, so, I'm talking about the lottery ticket, not your story, okay? As far as I think the closest I've come to that, I think I feel like I'm way up here in Canada. Um, I can't refer them to anything specifically except like the little novels that came out last year. So what I think would be the sort of equivalent for me kind of goes back to that thing we were talking about how MFA programs sort of assume that the way to get published or the goal and the also the magazines like Poets and Writers and that the goal is, oh, one of the big 5, agented work.
Mhm.
That's what you're aiming for, and there's this whole ecosystem of smaller presses and writers and other people in any given community who are working, and so my variation on yours is actually what I started doing last year, but never thought of as an experiment. It's just going to readings, local readings for local publishers, because you meet people. It's a small world,
Yeah.
and then I already have a publisher who said, "Like to see your stuff,"
Mhm.
if you've got anything, be sure to send a query. And so I think that's kind of similar, and I guess because I've worked so much online, and I get so tired of emails. Oh,
Mhm.
like, I have a ridiculous number of emails, no more than you, I'm sure, but, it's just, like, one of those things where if I get really, really slammed at work, I don't read my emails for 3 or 4 days, then I'm actually
Mhm.
missing stuff, I need to go
Yeah.
get my shit together, so, um So I think the thing that appeals to me about doing these in-person things, sort of a similar type of thing, is just here I am, nice to
Yeah.
be, or even going to membership meetings for like your local. For me, it would be Federation of BC Writers or Writers Union of Canada. For if they have local, I'll go to the in-person stuff. I'm less likely to go to the Zoom meetups because I'm on Zoom so much
Mhm.
anyway with meeting with clients and stuff. So I think that would be the closest I would come to that kind of what you're doing. And I think that's a good way to think of it is you don't have any expectations. You'll see how it goes, but it might pay off.
Yeah, you never know. And it's interesting that in-person piece is so much better.
I
Um,
find, yeah,
but it's also really hard to do because everything is so distributed,
yeah,
right? I think you have a real advantage if you live in New York City and if you live in Manhattan in New York
yeah,
City, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because you're right there.
You're right there. Yeah,
But everybody else has to figure out how to be right there in ways where, you can't always be that way.
yeah,
And
yeah.
this, it reminds me, if you're playing in a band and you're trying to get gigs, you've got your, um, sample tape, right? And so
Mhm.
you're going to be sending it out or going around to the various clubs and saying, listen to this.
Yeah.
But, you've got to figure out ways to kind of differentiate yourself too. So,
Mhm.
I think, there's that piece of it. And then, the other thing that's got me thinking about is all of us as creatives have to deal with gatekeepers.
Mhm.
There's just no way around that. And, you know, I think it's really easy because there's so much to us that feels like that's on the line that you become too deferential to,
Exactly. They're just people.
yeah, yeah. And too afraid, kind of like a fear of, oh, if I don't do things exactly this way, I'm going to anger,
Yeah,
you know, this one person. They've got a mystery list where they all share, like, do not listen to this person any longer, or don't
really.
consider this person. Well, I doubt that
Oh,
you
I
could.
see. You're speculating. Yeah, yeah. You
But
won't
I've
believe where
thought
my
that.
mind
I
went.
mean, I've wondered it. I mean, you got to wonder, like, do they talk and they're like, oh my God, this guy,
Yeah.
holy,
I'm
you know,
sure they do in the same house, like in I don't know actually, but, in the same, um, House of Representatives. House of Agents, but, to my shock, there are almost no, like, local meetups for agents, like, I'm just like, they don't really have that part of the industry totally figured out. It's changed a little, there's a new head of AAR in the US. Well, I think she's been doing it for a couple of years, and she's much more like, "Let's build a community, let's," but so they don't really have that, so I don't think you could,
yeah. No, but because we're so deferential,
yeah,
and we don't want to blow it for ourselves, and we don't want to get on any kind of list that says do not take queries or pitches or tapes or whatever from this person.
yeah,
And we also, limit ourselves. It's
yeah,
like this self-limiting thought. And
exactly, yeah. Yeah, I agree. That kind of circles back around to by the time you get mid-level, you know what the rules are. So you're
mm,
not like this young poet who camps outside, who's sitting at the foot of the famous poet,
right, right.
and going up afterwards going, "Hey, I'm a poet too." You're not doing that anymore because you know that that's, you're pretty much you're gonna bother somebody. But on the other hand, then why wouldn't you do it if you just can figure out a way that to do it that doesn't feel weird to you? And,
Yeah.
so I think we mid-levels need to try more of that all around because they are just human. They're, even individual, club owners and, gallery owners, like, what did Kath Monstream say, how she went in to pitch her hand-painted cards when she was starting out? She said she didn't say, "Do you wanna buy these cards?" She said, "Can I leave these and book an appointment with whoever is in purchasing?" Or because she
Mhm.
was talking to retail establishments, right? And then half the time the person was there and they talked to her immediately and they ordered cards just because of the way she did it more than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Well, and there's also, the it's like, kind of like dating in a weird way that, you approach so, back in the day, it's like you'd see somebody, you'd say, I would like to go have a conversation with this person,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
she saw you and thought, I'd like to have a conversation with this person, then she's going to be really open to it, enthusiastic. Come
Yeah.
on, let's talk, right?
Yeah.
But if she's over there going, God, I hope that guy doesn't talk to me,
Yeah.
then you see anything from you is going to feel like an imposition,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So we don't know as creatives, like we may be bringing the thing that they're looking for and
Yeah.
want, or we may be bringing more of the same that they are so sick of and don't really
Yeah.
want to.
And because it's the internet, we don't have the advantage of body language.
Right,
So we
right,
can't tell. We don't have any clues.
right.
So it's very difficult to tell.
Yeah, yeah. So you got to try something.
Yeah, why not? I mean, that's really what it comes down to is why not do these follow these mini brainstorm ideas that kind of are like, well, it occurred to you. That's got also to do with intuition and that unfolding thing I'm so into that Henrik Carlson wrote
Mm,
out.
yeah,
Is just if you stick too rigidly to your train track, you never get to see anything except that one route. So why not take some chances?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so take a little bit of a risk, but recognize, make it a measured risk. You're mid-level, you know not to be the crazy person or the person who doesn't do anything,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Don't get stuck in the middle and, should be our theme song. Um, yeah, so and take chances, but don't expect anything, like, don't get all so hung up on the fact that you think it might work out that you stop doing the other stuff that you gotta
Right.
do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've got a thicker skin by now. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know my I'm a badger, so I don't even have skin. I have, like, fur. Well, I
yeah,
guess
you're full of thick, kind of almost like tooth-proof, like a fox could come along and bite you and shake you around, and you're
You're
still just gonna, keep going on your way.
you're getting very into this,
You're gonna be like, "Fuck you, fox."
description of how thick my skin is. There's something you wanna tell me, James?
You're the badass honey badger, right?
Yippers! Guilty.
All right, so thick skin, fuck you, fox. You risk.
But send your shit out. Share your art.
Yeah, send it out.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. We'd love to hear how we're doing, so please leave a comment, join our chat page, or send us an email at giftedunderachievers@substack.com. You can also find us on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere else you'd like to listen to podcasts. Have an awesome day.